if you are just tuning in and can't read the description, the Knicks traded Julius Randle for and Donte DiVincenzo and the Detroit pick for Karl-Anthony Towns. If you want to get the transactional impact of what just happened, it's the first 35 minutes of the show. Now we go
not really, because we don't know.
We don't really know what the transactional impact is, but you guys did your best, and I this is why people come to us. I agree. But now I need the defender of Julius to join us and make some sense of this, because DJ, we did a Julius Randle Hall of Fame a month ago. Yep. And where I come down on this, I'm still processing it. I haven't processed that Cat is coming. I haven't processed that Randle is leaving. To John's point, we're never going to see the Villanova collective play together.
Fucking wild.
That aspect is still kind of crazy to me. So I go to you, DJ, and say, you're okay. John has, go ahead.
Very briefly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I mean this. I'm not saying this facetiously. I'm sorry that one of the, if not the first thing out of my mouth was, let's honor a guy who is unequivocally, say that again, unequivocally one of the 20 greatest players in franchise history. There is no doubt. Take it from me, who did a top 75 Knicks ranking a few years ago and has look back on it frequently to be like, where does Julius rank now? Where's Julius rank now? He's one of the 20 greatest Knicks ever. He's I think 50, top 50, whatever. He's one of the greats. So there needs to be space, and there will be space, and maybe we'll get a little bit from DJ right now, to just sit here and recognize a guy who came to this franchise when they were the laughing pile of dog shit, forget the NBA, in professional sports. And he came here. And all he did was he made 3 All-Star teams, 2 All-NBA teams, and helped the franchise go to the playoffs 3 times, when they've been to the playoffs 3 times in the previous 20 years. So we're going to talk more about Julius, but I had to say that because it was shitty that I didn't say that earlier.
All good. Glad you did. He will be missed. We'll talk about him at some point and what his legacy was here. So DJ,
yes, sir.
The Knicks traded Julius Randle for Karl-Anthony Towns. Your initial thoughts as a basketball fit?
If Karl Towns is your center, I think the fit is great. I think if the goal here is that you're going to all in on maximizing spacing around Jalen Brunson, if you're going to play the 5-out type of offense that we see in Boston, that we've seen some of these high level teams play, if that's the goal here, if he's going to be your primary 5, despite the premium they paid, I can't argue with the decision to bring in a player I think, and you guys might have touched on that, I've been in and out listening, who is, I think, an historically good offensive center. One of the great.
He is, just ask him.
He'll tell you, greatest shooting big of all time in the history. And he's got I don't think he is, but he's got a decent argument to be made, especially off the catch, off movement. I mean, he is not just a standstill 3-point shooter. He could do it in a variety of ways. He was a much better pick and roll operator last year with Gobert. There are things that he's developed playing the 4 with Minnesota that he can, that is, I think, additive. But I think if the Knicks are bringing him in to be the 4, and if, as Jeremy alluded to, their goal is ultimately to bring in a center to play alongside him, I think the Knicks got worse if that is their intention. Now, I think this front office is too savvy to go into and make this move to trade DiVincenzo, to trade Randle for a power forward who is still a very good offensive player, but just is not at the same level playing against other big wings, other 4s. I think this front office knows that if you're going to pay this premium, you have to tap into what makes Karl-Anthony Towns special, and that's him playing the 5, and you figure out the defense.
I want to ask the first question here, because we have spent a lot of this summer talking about a potential Knicks death lineup. And it got more attention recently when Thibodeau made his comments to NBA.com and talked about playing Julius at the 5. And the whole time, and I'm not smart enough to think of this on my own, I steal from people like you and Benji and other smart folks around the internet, but mostly you two. I never thought of it as Randle at the 5. I thought of it as Randle at the 5 on offense, but I thought of it as OG at the 5 on defense. And I am wondering if they look at this as, well, now we get that in our, again, sounds great. Now we get to have our cake and eat it too, because now we have this on, Cat is the 5 on offense, which is like, for as wonderful as it was to think about Julius as the 5 in the death lineup, I would argue thinking about Karl-Anthony Towns as the 5 in the same death lineup is more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And does it really make that much of a difference whether it's Julius Randle or Karl-Anthony Towns? It may make a difference in
defensively.
In terms of the role that Julius would have played defensively versus the role that we anticipate Karl-Anthony Towns potentially playing defensively. You see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, I think there could be a big difference actually, because I think the aspect to the whole thing with Towns is, if you look at some of the rim protection numbers, I mean, he's never been great at it, but I think he has developed into a reasonable defensive center as a rim protector, strictly because he's a giant. He gets in the way of things, and he's long. And you think about his, I mean, look, you have those things. You have decent agility. It's like your ceiling's pretty high as a defender, protecting the basket. And then as a pick and roll, the thing about Julius, like defending pick and rolls has always been like a struggle for him. You can't play him in drop against you put him in an aggressive coverage scheme. You're asking a lot of him as, in terms of the effort he's going to have to put forth. Towns has become like a pretty good, like, show and recover big. Again,
we talked about this earlier this summer. We had this conversation.
We did. So listen, that it's going to require, and this is like where Tibbs is going to be really tested here. You can't play Towns in a strict drop and expect like a quality defense. It's going to have to be a very different defensive system that Thibodeau has deployed when he was in Minnesota with Towns, where it didn't work. And then, since he's been with the Knicks and he's had more traditional drop centers, Towns is not that type of player, but that's not to say you can't build a good defense around him. He doesn't have Gobert. He has two all-NBA caliber defensive wings. So it's very different, but you can still build a good defense in my mind with Towns at center based on the talent around him. And then you talk about the death lineup. I mean, I have not begun to really process the amount of offensive talent Brunson, Bridges, and Towns as just a trio has. I mean, I think Bridges, like, it's ridiculous in terms of, like, I think Bridges, I think where it ended with the Nets, I feel like he's being undervalued as an offensive player. We know about Brunson. He's elite. Towns at the center spot, he's elite. That group, and then you have Anunoby with his cutting and his shooting, and as a corner guy, this is a really dynamic offensive lineup. And if Josh Hart is starting, you have him pushing the pace and the rebounding aspect. And then before I turn it back, I do want to, just before I forget about it, the thing I worried about the most with Julius and Anunoby as your 4 and 5 is that the defensive backboards I thought were going to be a major problem. And I talked about this in the chat with the rest of our KFC group many times.
KFS. We're not a checking company.
Sorry. Listen, it's late. It's almost midnight.
You're making me hungry.
Probably not the first time I made that mistake.
2 pieces of mashed potatoes.
There you go.
Herbs and spices.
You were saying.
Anyway, Towns is an excellent defensive rebounder, and I think he's going to, despite some limitations as a defender, he's going to rebound the ball. And I don't think the Knicks are going to give up a lot on the defensive backboard. So if you're going to get a stop, you're going to be able to close those possessions much better with Towns versus a Randle situation there. So that's another piece of it that I'm, excited about. But I think it just comes down to, it's got to be Towns at the 5. I'm going to harp on that until we get a definitive answer, maybe sooner than later, regarding how the Knicks are going to deploy him. But I think it has to be that way. I have a lot of reservations about this trade if the plan is not that. So, we can talk more about it or go somewhere else.
Can we at least agree that whatever happens in the not only this regular season, but in regular seasons moving forward, is probably not necessarily going to be indicative of what happens in the postseason, is how they deploy their guys.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
I mean,
I mean, we'll see what they do, but I actually want to go here. We could go around the horn. You just pitched Josh Hart as a starter. I'm curious what everybody else thinks. Jeremy, who do you think is the starting lineup of this team right now? And for ease of
having the trade.
For ease of conversation, let's leave Mitch out because we know at the very least whether Mitch is on the team or not, he's not going to be playing basketball until December, at least.
Gosh, it really comes down to, is Cat going to be viewed as a 4 or a 5 from the jump? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't
this is true?
That's everything.
I still want to imagine that the way that with Tibbs starting games, that he would rather have Hart bring the energy off the bench. Like, I'm at the point where, is he going to go with Sims as starting next to Cat? And I'm not saying I would do that, to be clear. I'm trying to get inside Tibbs's insane mind of what's most important to him.
What about Precious?
See, I feel like, I mean, yes, if you had Precious as a 4, which we know that he seems to like, there is the complementing factor there.
Andrew,
I can't get over it that you just said Precious. We can't escape it. We're gonna get more Precious at the 4, and now it might make more sense because the center can shoot. I can't get over that.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You could call it whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
If Precious is on the floor with Karl-Anthony Towns, functionally he is a 5 on offense. It's the same logic as if OG and Randle, like technically it's OG at the 5 or Randle at the 5. One's the 5 on offense, one's the 5 on defense. Because but there's no your traditional rim protector. Because Precious would be the center. I agree with you. I think opening night, Cat is starting at center. I'm taking Ian Bagley's word right now that per league sources, that the biggest need is at center. Look, I am hoping that Tibbs is looking at this and seeing what OG at the 4 was, with Mikal now being able to be in the lineup. So I'll say Josh Hart, at least to start, is your 2. What's up?
I'd like to. So Yossi Gozlan said it sounds like the New York Knicks will make up the rest of $8.8 million outgoing salary required by sign and trading free agents. That means it could be everyone else who played on the team.
But hold on, we may have to revisit this because they only have, in addition to being able to sign vet minims, and also, by the way, they're not that far away from the second apron. You're telling me you can't? Are you sure you can't sign and trade a taxpayer mid-level exception guy?
You cannot. It doesn't work. You can't use that. It's only for signing. If it's non-taxpayer, then you can do it. If it's taxpayer, you cannot do it.
You can't. It is in the portion of the year where you cannot aggregate minimums for salary purposes. You can't do that until December 15th. If someone has to explain to me how you are going to make up $8.8 million, and Deuce apparently has been reported that is not in the deal, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is there Evan Fournier ain't walking through that door. I literally just don't know how they're doing this money wise.
Well, keep in mind, remember Shake Milton, he didn't sign he wasn't signed and traded with the minimum contract. He was signed and traded with the max percentage of what he was eligible to earn as a non-bird rights player. So it didn't count. But listen, because when the Knicks did the Bridges trade, they had Bogdanovich, they had Diakite, who was on a minimum deal, and they also had Milton, who was not on a minimum contract.
And now they have Jeffries to use in that capacity.
Right, but they can also use other free agents at their disposal. Charlie Brown Jr. would be another name. Any of the guys that they
Dwayne Washington, right?
Anyone who they haven't renounced rights to, they can sign and trade them. It's just a matter of roster spots because it's up to 21.
Non-minimum deals.
Right. So That's how
Wow.
you get it done, where you don't have these minimum contracts that are stacked. You have non-bird rights earning their max, which are greater than the minimum amounts, just like Shake Milton when they did the Bridges trade.
So
and
hold on.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you're able to do that, right, and you're keeping Mitchell Robinson, it goes to the theory, which is that the Knicks are still interested in either getting a big using Mitchell Robinson's salary at some point this year or bringing Mitchell Robinson back, which goes further into my hypothesis, which is that they see Cat as more of a 4 and a 5 functionally when they need to, but that they at least want the option of a rim protecting big at the 5 and can mix and match whenever they want.
To answer the question that I posed before, I'm sorry to disagree with you, Jeremy. I think they see Cat as a 5. I think they're going to play Cat mostly at the 5.
But there's confusion because I'm not saying they don't see Cat as a 5 at all,
Okay.
right? That's not what I'm getting at. What I am saying is that the Knicks clearly like versatility.
Yeah.
But they want more than just
That's why they made this trade. So they could play this guy at the 4 sometimes and at the 5 sometimes. Yes.
Right. But if Mitch is still here, right? And if Mitch gets healthy,
sure.
What position is Mitchell Robinson playing? It's obviously the 5. And then Cat would mix and match when Mitch is not on the floor or when he's not healthy.
Are you discounting the possibility?
If they trade Mitch at any capacity as well, I'm of the mindset that they're likely looking to upgrade at the 5, not necessarily at the 4.
I think it makes sense. So now, assuming Mitch is not in this trade, which the reporting indicates he won't be. Well, first of all, we don't know who they have to get something back from Charlotte because sorry, very quick detour. Salary matching rules right now, if teams are below is this below the first apron or the second apron?
What's the question? I can answer it.
It's so where it's if outgoing is between 7.25 and 29 million, you get to increase it by another 7.5. There's a 7.5 wiggle room, which would seem to be applicable here, I think, as for Charlotte's purposes. But is that for teams over the first apron, or I think if you're over the first apron, you may not get the benefit of that doubt. But then again, Charlotte is
$23 million in first apron space. Charlotte does.
Charlotte is the one that we have to be paying attention to here. So they can intake. Let's just say they intake. No. If it's outgoing, then it's only 200% because they're the ones sending back lower outgoing salary. So if it's up to 7.25 million, the outgoing salary could bring back 200% plus $250,000. So if the Knicks have 8 point whatever million to make up, that means Charlotte would need to, unless I'm missing something here, that they would need to send out like something real, like a real thing.
They're a first apron team now, so financially, right? But they're the math needs to even out.
I think they need to send out, and again, like I think the Knicks need to get up into like the teens here. Which they again functionally, I guess they could do, but I'm very curious what Charlotte would be sending back. I mean, I'm looking at their cap sheet right now. Cody Martin makes $8 million. They have Nick Richards, our old friend Nick Richards, who maybe he's factoring in here. We'll see. I actually would not be shocked in the least if they ended up with Nick Richards at the end of this thing.
Can I read an Ian Bagley tweet just to go back to the positional designations, which I agree mostly with Jeremy, and I don't think we're even disagreeing with Jeremy that what the Knicks see Cat as is a 5 that can play the 4 in certain situations, in certain games, in certain matchups. I'm more going to what lineup I think we'll see on opening night, and I mean, look, I could see him going with Sims to start or Precious to start, but the lineup we see in closing time is Josh Hart with the other 4, so that's I think this Bagley. So that's why the starting lineup. I don't know how much. It's obviously the question we go to, but I wonder if the most important lineup is when he goes to Josh Hart, the Villanova trio, which is now just a trio with Anunoby and Karl-Anthony Towns. per Ian Begley, the Knicks, in touch with team, felt they had a great opportunity to address the biggest need at center in trading for the 4-time All-Star and 2-time All-NBA player Karl-Anthony Towns. They see Towns as a great fit, 28, with their overall high-end talent and someone who complements the rest of the core well. So that specifically says center. So I wonder if Ian, in his reporting, was like, let me see, are you looking at him as a 4 or a 5? And sees this as addressing their need at center.
Without knowing anything else about the trade, right now, the Knicks' top 7, I don't think there's any question about this, is it's not in any particular order: Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Deuce McBride, Josh Hart, and Precious Achiuwa. Did I miss anything? Because I'm leaving out Mitch, because Mitch is not playing basketball for a while.
Yep.
And then, so we're some of these, the Jericho Sims and Tyler Kolex and Cameron Paynes of the world, maybe the Marcus Morrises and Landry Shamits of the world.
So are you guys worried about that bench a little bit?
I don't know how you can't. I mean, if it wasn't for OG's injury history, and actually not that Karl-Anthony Towns is a picture of health either.
Well, there's that, and then he's got 4 fouls in every third quarter. So there's that issue
over
as well.
Yes. It depends. This is gonna be a weird way I go to this, but if Tyler Kolek is your backup point guard to start, then I'm worried about the defensive side of it, but not necessarily the offensive side of it. If they go to Campaign, then it's Josh Hart, Deuce, Precious, and Campaign off your bench, and you're going to really need to take advantage of staggering, which I think they were going to stagger anyway.
They just feel light especially at the wing. I mean, you lose OG for 2 weeks. I mean, it feels like it's going to be a struggle to have enough credible bodies there to
hold on. You have Mikal Bridges is the NBA's Iron Man, and Josh Hart's pretty close.
Yep.
And we know one of those guys is capable of playing 48 minutes, and the other one is pretty close, because I think he led the league in minutes, right? At one point in his career.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're thinking they're short at the wing, the best way to find a wing backup for Josh Hart is to play Josh Hart as his backup too.
That's a good point.
I was gonna say
Bridges.
I was gonna say, if you think the Knicks are short at the wing, you should apply for a position within the Adams administration.
Oh God, I thought you were going KFC with that reference, but
no one saw that clip besides me.
We all did, but I didn't know we were getting some references to the former mayor of New York. We now acknowledge,
I know what's up. I'm hip with the news.
Now acknowledge Jalen Brunson.
Is he the former mayor of New York?
I have no idea. I just don't acknowledge him. Jalen Brunson.
Karl-Anthony Towns is the new mayor.
Yeah, we gave him the key to the city. Okay.